Hello, Janice.
Hello, Anthony.
Today we'll talk about who's in charge when someone dies. So when somebody dies, there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's not really one person in charge, but possibly several different folks in charge of several different things. And we're going to talk about all those different things and all those different roles so you know what to expect and how to plan.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about the different roles, including next of kin, burial agent, trustee, executor, administrator, and the state.
And lastly, I'm going to go over one of the often forgotten types of person who's in charge. So make sure you stick around for that.
Absolutely. So we do have lots of experience in this whole subject of probate and after someone passes. Anthony actually wrote a book available online, How Probate Works. Oh, but the really good news is that there is a new book coming out, How to Hire an Executor. It deals exactly with what we're talking about today. So get on the list so you can be notified. It's you sign up at anthonyspark.com/join so you can be in the know for the new books.
Perfect. All right, let's get started. The first type of person who is sometimes in charge is the next of kin. For those of you who don't know, that's the closest living family members, depending on who's alive. And so during the first few weeks or months, there's a gap between the date of death, the date somebody actually passes away, and when a formal court-appointed executor or other role is filled. So during that gap, usually the family or next of kin takes charge of certain things, such as funeral arrangements, death certificates, things like that, hiring the attorney, things like that.
Unless, number two, burial agent, unless there's a burial agent. Some people have actually gone ahead and assigned a burial agent that will take care of their final arrangements, whether that's funeral, different things. That's why we've talked about this before. It's important to locate if there is a burial agent involved in the estate.
Perfect. Next, the third role of somebody who's in charge after someone passes away is a trustee. So if the person who passed away had set up a trust, that's kind of good news because you may be able to skip the whole probate court process, which would be great.
Yay!
So you have a trustee who's in charge of this trust, which is like a container that's holding all the deceased person's assets. And all of those assets will automatically go to the trustee's sort of control to distribute to the heirs or maybe go into a continuing trust after death. So that person would be an important role if there's a trust.
So another role is an executor. If you die with a will, you will most likely go through the court probate process, and they're going to formally appoint someone to handle your estate. And that person is called an executor.
Similarly, there's an administrator. If there's no will, there's still a probate court process, but it's called administration, and instead of an executor, you have an administrator. Now, this is similar to an executor in that it doesn't have to be the next of kin. In many cases, for both the executor and the administrator, you can opt out of either the person named in the will or the person who's, I guess, technically the next of kin, and instead choose an independent executor, maybe even a professional executor instead, for various reasons. Either the folks live too far, maybe they're too old, too busy. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to hire somebody else instead.
Absolutely. And this is a long process. Probate is a long process, so the person that signs up to do this has to be prepared for that. So lastly, the state. Eventually, if you do nothing or there is no estate plan, everything always goes back to the estate. That's tricky, and it ends up being, a really long process, but eventually the state will take over.
I just want to make something clear here because the words are so similar. We have estate and the state, like the state of New York.
The state, the government.
Yeah, very good. The government will take over if nobody does anything. So you want to you definitely want to avoid that.
So, Anthony, tell us who the often forgotten person in charge when someone dies is.
Okay, so everyone forgets about this, but there are named beneficiaries. So on assets like life insurance, bank accounts, brokerage accounts, or any other asset that can have a named beneficiary, those beneficiaries receive those assets automatically upon death. So they are in charge of that asset, at least. Maybe not the whole situation, but that life insurance policy or that bank account, it's up to them to submit the death certificate, contact the bank, life insurance company, whatever, and collect that money. So one other thing, though, when I'm talking about named beneficiaries, I am not advocating just slapping named beneficiaries onto all of your accounts and calling that estate planning. That is not a good idea. We have seen way too many times. So this is what we are. We are the people who see what happens when folks die. We can see in the future, right? Because we've seen how it all ends. And what happens is the vast majority of the time, people forget who they named as beneficiaries, and then they do a will later that expresses their more current wishes, but those things contradict each other. And you end up with a situation where the wrong people are getting money, basically.
Right. Or fighting and costing more money to fight. Right.
Don't do it. Do not rely on beneficiary designations as your estate plan. I mean, there are some very limited circumstances where everything's going to your spouse. Yeah, fine, maybe. But anything more complicated than that, get an estate plan, please.
Yeah. Right. And my soapbox for the estate planning is get an estate planner that is a professional. This is not a DIY thing. Don't go online, don't Google it, and don't try to figure it out. This is something you want to do correctly the first time to eliminate these problems.
However, if you do go that route and do it yourself, you're actually just lining my pockets because you're making a complicated estate probate that your heirs will have to hire somebody like me and pay me a ton of money. So if you want to avoid that, just get a good lawyer from the beginning, please.
Absolutely. Well, so that's it for today. But as we talked about, this process is complicated and it has a lot of moving parts. So a book available on Amazon is How Probate Works. New one coming out, How to Hire an Executor. Get on the list so you know what's going on with the books. Sign up at anthonyspark.com/join, and you maybe could even get a free copy of an upcoming book.
Cool. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Janice, and we'll talk again next time. Bye.
We'll talk soon. Bye.